Hey everyone, it's Matt. Hope you're doing well and having a good weekend. I wanted to just continue with my Beach Boys series of reviews that I'm doing in order. And so with that, we come to Summer Days and Summer Nights. This was released July 5th of 1965 and is their ninth studio album, and it's their second album in 1965. Beach Boys Today is the first. This is got to number 2 on the charts, which ties Surfin' USA, the band's second album, as their highest position. Both those albums got to number 2. They never had a number 1 album, unfortunately. The Rolling Stones, Out of Our Heads, was number 1 and kept this from topping the charts. So, yeah, this is also the first appearance of Bruce Johnson on a studio album of the Beach Boys. Johnson, when Brian Wilson decided not to tour anymore in late '64, Bruce Johnson filled in when they were playing live. Brian thought he was good enough that he brought him into the band on the records. Johnson does not appear on the cover or the back because he was still under contract with another record label other than Capitol Columbia, I think. So he was, for contractual reasons, he did not appear on any Beach Boys albums until Wild Honey in 1967, a couple of years after this. So you got the cover here, band out on a yacht. I believe that's probably Bobby Z's boat that they borrowed. So there is no Bruce Johnson. There's also no Al Jardine, even though he's still in the band. He was just sick the day of the photo shoot. So you've got Mike Love looking like a punk there. And then you've got Brian and Dennis and Carl Wilson. And Jardine is on the back here, though. Each of the band members, with the exception of Bruce Johnson, writes up a little hey to the fans, thanks for buying our album. A couple of paragraphs there. So this is the copy that I got. I lucked out and I got a copy for $7. This is a mono pressing, still in the shrink wrap. I believe this may be a first pressing or maybe a second pressing, but I think it's from the 60s. I think it's an early pressing nonetheless. It's kind of neat. It's in really good shape. No splits on the seams or anything. And kind of cool. It's got the sticker there from the record store, which is looks like EJ Corvette, which I've heard me and Mr. Mayo Joe talk about that store. So I'm guessing, I don't remember ever seeing those in Texas, but I'm guessing that's a store that was up east in New York in that area. It was it's been marked out, but it looks like it was $2.49, but it was marked down to $1.99. So whoever bought it way back then got it for $2. The reason I think this may not be a first pressing is the inner sleeve here has advertises other Capitol record releases, but like I said, this came out in July of '65. But there's Beach Boys Party, which is the album that came out after this, and there's Rubber Soul, which came out in '65, but came out in late '65, like November or so, toward the end of the year. So maybe this is a second pressing, or maybe it's a first, and the record company had these releases lined up, so they went ahead and put them on the sleeve. I don't know. And whoever sold this to me, I actually bought it off of Amazon. I bought it where they sell used records on there. Was kind enough to put a plastic sleeve inside of the paper sleeve there. I won't pull it out because I may not be able to get back in. But there you've got the Capitol Rainbow label, mono. Plays really good. I've played this several times. So let's see. We've got Bruce Johnson's first appearance, all that good stuff. It got to number 2, just like Surfin' USA, and that's their highest chart position for any of their albums. And Capitol Records. So with Beach Boys Today, the one that I reviewed a week or two ago, the album that came out before this was sort of a sonic leap forward. Not that the early albums weren't great, they were, but it was sort of a Brian was growing up as a person and as a songwriter and arranger and producer. So more sophisticated, more complex themes, moving away from the endless summer, sun and the fun in the sun, bikini girls, let's go surfing now type stuff to more, I don't know, weightier subject matter, I guess. This was probably in response to the fact that he was getting older, probably in response to the fact that he had written surf and hot rod songs for, so what, 62 for like 3 years now, so he's probably ready to move on to something else. And probably in large response to the fact that the British invasion, Motown, and other changes in music in 64 and 65 changed the game around from what it was in 62 and 63. But unfortunately, Capitol Records, from what I've read, wanted, even though Today was, did well, sold well, was a hit album, they wanted the Beach Boys, to kind of stay the Beach Boys and keep cranking out the beach and hot rod songs, and sort of told Brian Wilson to do that, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because the Beatles are also on Capitol, and they were given free reign pretty much to do whatever they wanted, to change, to grow, to experiment, to do all sorts of different things and push the envelope, and rightfully so. And it's a good thing that they were, because that's where we got all that great Beatles music. But the Beach Boys apparently were not considered by Capitol in the same league as far as being able to do that, even though Brian would get to experiment here on the next few albums. But they just wanted the Beach Boys, I guess, to keep making the same type music, because they made a lot of money off of that, I guess. And it's a good thing they didn't do that with the Beatles, that they didn't try to force them to write She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand Part 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. Not I can imagine what Lennon would have told them if they suggested that. But anyway, so this is sort of a return to the Beach Boys of yore, kind of the more, I don't want to say simple-minded, but the more fun, free-spirited innocence of the earlier albums. Not that those weren't great, they were, but the difference being that the production, the music, and the arrangements and so forth is a lot more complex, sophisticated than on those earlier albums, because Brian is growing by leaps and bounds as a writer, as a producer, as an arranger. So let's get into the songs. The first song on side one is The Girl from New York City, which is Love Sings the Lead. This is a response to the ad-lib song The Boy from New York City. It's where I'm looking at my notes, I'm sorry. Yeah, so anyway, good song, good opening. It's got a pounding, nice chugging beat to it. Really good harmonies. I like the song. I'm going to give it a 10. The lyrics are nothing spectacular, but they're not terrible. But good song. It's a nice little pop rocking song. I give it a 10. So we go to the second song, Amusement Park USA, which is kind of got a wall of sound to it, but it's also got a kind of a, I don't know, skating rink organ in it. Reminds me somewhat of the song Palisades Park. It's kind of a throwback song. It sounds like something that should have been on an earlier Beach Boys album from 62, 63. Brian and Mike Love sing lead on it. Hal Blaine, the drummer, one of the session drummers they used a lot, does the Carnival Barker part in it. Brian Wilson plays piano. I don't think any of the other band members actually play on it, though they sing on it. Brian supplies the laughter in the song, which is rather maniacal laughter. It's got a nice descending bass line in it, especially towards the end. It's kind of corny, kind of something that should have been on one of their albums a couple of years earlier, maybe, instead of on 65, after the strides and the progress they'd made in their last couple of albums, Today and the last couple of albums. But I'm going to give it an 8. It's a fun song. It's a goofy song, but it's a pretty good song. Third song was Then I Kissed Her, which is, of course, Then He Kissed Me, the Crystal song from July of 1963 that's written by Phil Spector, Ellie Greenwich, and Jeff Barry. Classic song. The Crystals, great song. Only got number 6 in the United States, the Crystals version. I was kind of surprised to learn it got to number 2 in England. This is an album track by them. I don't think it was released. It might have been a B-side of a single, but it didn't chart the Beach Boys version. It's a nice song. The Crystals is a classic, so you can't really improve on it. They do, Beach Boys do a really good job of covering it, but there's really no need for it. They changed the lyrics a little bit. Of course, they changed the gender to Then I Kissed Her from Then He Kissed Me, because that, and they do an alright version of this, and all of the band members actually play on it. It's good. It's kind of inessential, but I'll give it a 7. Fourth song is called Salt Lake City, and Mike Love sings lead vocals on that. It's kind of a 50s sounding song. It's okay. I'm going to give it a 7. Salt Lake City was supposedly one of their favorite cities because it was the first city, or one of the first cities, to play the band's records outside of California when they were just breaking and back in '62 and coming up. So they always kind of like Salt Lake City because of that, and they played there often. Apparently back in the '60s, Carl Wilson plays guitar on it. I don't think anyone else from the band actually plays on it. I might have said they all did. They all play on Then I Kissed Her, but I think Carl is the only one that plays on this, and then session musicians the rest of it. 7 is what I'm giving that. So, fifth song, Girl Don't Tell Me. Carl sings lead. This is one of the first, not the first song he sang lead on a Beach Boys album, but it's one of the earliest. No backing vocals, which for a band so well known for harmonies and intricate harmonies at that, it's kind of odd, but it works. It's really good. This is the first session that Bruce Johnson played on. All the band members play on it. Great vocal from Carl. It's a boy meets girl song. The guy meets the girl in summer, and they have a fling, and she promises to write, and apparently he doesn't think she will, or she doesn't. I'm going to give it a 10. Some things I've read kind of compared it to Ticket to Ride. Don't really get that, but it is a little Beatley sounding in parts. And according to legend, Brian Wilson wrote this and was going to offer it to the Beatles, but never did, apparently. But I don't know. It's if it could have worked with the Beatles song or not, it's kind of hard to see that. But it works really well as a Beach Boys song. It's a great one. I'm going to give it a 10, making that the first. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to give that a 10. So, song number 6, which closes out side 1, is Help Me Rhonda. Oddly enough, Help Me Rhonda had just appeared on the Beach Boys Today, the album before this, in slightly different form and spelling. They spelled it R-O-N-D-A on Today. It's R-H-O-N-D-A on here. This is the version that was released as a single and went to number 1. It was the Beach Boys' second number 1 hit. And Al Jardine sings lead on this, and it's a good song. I talked about it on the Today album. I actually like the version on Today, which has the fade in and the fade out, and has the instrumental part before they start singing. And I think that version's a little bit better than this one, but it's good too. I'm going to give it a 9. Side 2 starts with one of their biggest hits, California Girls. Song went to number 3. Supposed to be inspired by Brian Wilson's first acid trip, apparently. It's also, he was thinking about music from old cowboy movies, and that's how he kind of got that kind of back and forth shuffle rhythm eventually. Also kind of inspired by On Broadway by the Drifters, great song. Brian's dad, Murray Wilson, who is total douchebag. Thought the song was too complex, and of course he doesn't know what he's talking about. The intro section is one of Brian Wilson's favorite pieces of music that he's ever written, apparently, and it is a good intro. So yeah, it's a song. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. Huge hit. Got to number 3. I think I said that, the 45. Not one of my favorite Beach Boys songs for some reason. I don't hate it. I don't dislike it. It's a great song. It just never did much for me, with the exception of the intro there, which is inspired and great, so I've got to give that credit. I do love the line, "I dig a French bikini on Hawaiian Island girls by a palm tree in the sand." Not that they're anything terribly deep. I just always thought that was a nice line. Always got a grin out of that. I think that's cool. It's a great song. It's not one of my favorites. Never really did a lot for me, but on a personal level, I'd probably give it like a 5 or a 6, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9 because I know it's one of their best known and most loved songs. So yeah, we'll give it a 9. It's no difference. Let Him Run Wild. Brian sings lead on this. Apparently he didn't like his vocal on it and doesn't like the song very much, which is a shame because it's a great song. It's one of their best. None of the band members play on it. They all sing on it, though. It's kind of a soulful song. It was supposed to be written, inspired by the type of music that Burt Bacharach was writing. You know, all those great hits for Dionne Warwick and others at that time. And it sounds a little Burt Bacharach-ish, and it sounds soulful. Great song. I like it. I'm going to give it a 10. We come to number 3, You're So Good to Me. Brian sings again on this. Really good song. All the band members play on it. It's got the weird guitar sound, which comes from, I guess, Carl Wilson playing his guitar through a Leslie organ speaker. Kind of almost a soul-sounding song in part. Good pop song, great vocal, and just about the guy's girlfriend is really good to him. I love it. I'm going to give that song a 10. So then we come to number 4. We've got an instrumental song called Summer Means New Love. Brian plays on this. He plays piano. Nobody sings, of course. None of the other Beach Boys appear on this. Session musicians play the rest of the stuff. Nice. They've had instrumentals on almost all of their albums up to this point. Some of them have been good. Some of them have been throwaways and forgettable. This one's really good. It's kind of foreshadows the even more complex arrangements that we're going to get on Pet Sounds of Smile coming up here pretty soon. Really good piece of music. It's just a very relaxed, warm piece of music. It's reminds me of someone, a guy and a girl in love, and they're just very happy, very fulfilled, sort of going on a walk or sitting out on the porch after having spent a really great day together. That's kind of the mood it puts me in. Almost hits me as a sort of a Christmas song in some ways, which may seem kind of strange, but just sort of you've gone through a great Christmas Eve, and you know, with your family and everything, and presents and eating, and then it's sort of later that night, and you're sitting there just looking at the Christmas tree, and I don't know that anyone else is going to see that as a Christmas song, because who knows. But anyway, it's a great song. One of their better instrumentals. I'm going to give that a 10 too. Then we get a weird one. I'm Bugged at My Old Man, which is sort of a novelty type record. Reminds me of the 50s hits like Yakety Yak and Get a Job. Brian plays piano and sings, even though they have Who Sings lead on the back here. I don't know if you can see that, but on I'm Bugged at My Old Man, it says Too Embarrassed as far as who sings the lead, but it's actually Brian singing the lead and the other Beach Boys backing him up. Brian plays piano. I don't think there's really any other instrumentation on it. It's a weird, strange, slightly disturbing song because it's this comedy novelty record with these trite lyrics about, You know, he took my surfboard away, he cut my hair, he locked me in my room. But then it's also written about his dad, Murray, who, you know, hit him in the head with a 2x4 and made him lose hearing in his right ear, and regularly beat the kids when they were younger, and was just a total dickhead. So uh, it's a funny song about a very, unfortunately, horrific uh, reality. Uh, it's a strange one. I'm going to give it a 6. I'm not really sure what to do with that one. Last song is only like a minute and 4 seconds long. It's called "And Your Dreams Come True." They, oddly enough, never have performed this one live. It's all of the band members sing on it a cappella. It's a very pretty, very nice, lush song. I'm going to give it a 9. And so that wraps up the album. I think this is not as good an album as Today, but it is still a pretty good album. I gave Today a 10. I'm going to give this one, I'm going to give it a 8.5. We'll go with that. Um, it's very good. It's not as good as Today. It's not as good as a couple of their earlier ones even, but it's still really good. I don't know. I mean, the Beach Boys, this is sort of where they start to, they're still sort of 50-ish, you know, and at a time when the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Who are coming on the scene, and I mean, the Beatles and Rolling Stones have already been around for a year or so, and Yardbirds and stuff, but they're still making great music. These albums are the Beatles are better. They were all throughout the '60s. The Rolling Stones, I don't know, maybe their first couple albums overall might be better than some of these, but at this point, they don't have any. This is about the time when the Rolling Stones start coming to fore as songwriters with Satisfaction and Get Off My Cloud and all. But before this, Rolling Stones had solid albums, but they didn't have the highs of the Beach Boys albums, if that makes sense. Same with the Kinks, because the Kinks, with the exception early on of like You Really Got Me and All Day and All of the Night, and a couple of songs were still covering old R&B songs. So I don't know exactly what I'm saying here, but I don't want to record this video over. But just saying the really good albums, and they, I don't know. I should have rethought that one. Anyway, so 8.5, and we'll be back with the next Beach Boys album sometime soon.